After years of waiting, the review scores in. We are witnessing history. Not only Zelda history, but gaming history. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a game that changes everything, and the road to this crowning achievement was more rocky than any game we have seen in the recent years. But it is so worth it to see the final product. This is the history that led to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. In order to understand how the game came to be, we must first look at how it has been shaped and impacted by inner and outer causes. And it all began with the reveal of the Wii U console at E3 2011. The year marked the 25th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda and bore witness to the greatest opening segment in E3 history with the Symphony of the Goddess. E3 2011 was the show that would conclude Nintendo's golden Wii generation, with the final demo of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, the release of Ocarina of Time 3D, and reveal of their next generation of console gaming, the Wii U. Among many things Nintendo showcased in its Wii U hands-on at E3 was a tech demo of what a Zelda game on this new console could look like to demonstrate the power of the full HD console. The Zelda HD experience gave attendees a taste of the dual analog camera controls and the dual screen experience offered by the Wii U gamepad by setting them in an impressive and highly detailed dungeon and boss battle between a realistically depicted Link and Armagoma. Nevertheless, this dream of a realistic HD Zelda would never be anything more than a tech demo. Since this year was all about Skyward Sword, and the year was about to reach its culminating point with the release of the highly anticipated title, an installment that had been developed by Nintendo EAD3 since 2008, was supposed to further cement the domination of the franchise and prove that motion controllers had a future in the gaming industry. Sadly, the gamble on a fully Wii Motion Plus controlled Zelda game would divide and alienate the Zelda fanbase, as the title had a massive weak point. Its restrictive design led to some of the most bound areas and levels in Zelda history. This stood in stark contrast to Bethesda Game Studios' smash hit, the completely seamless and open Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, which stole the headlines that fall. Despite one of, if not the greatest story in the series, Nintendo had, for the first time in their long history, been challenged and outsold with a large margin by a game that would forever change the RPG genre. Skyrim outsold Skyward Sword by a measure of 5-1. Worse, Skyward Sword would soon become the second worst-selling 3D Zelda game of all time on Nintendo's best-selling console of all time. The 25th anniversary met an unpleasant end, and something had to be done to prevent the next console Zelda installment from falling into the same trap. This is why director for the next console Zelda game and series producer Eiji Aonuma must have decided at some point to play Skyrim to see what the great appeal of that game was: the freedom of exploring a massive, boundless world. Skyrim. Obviously I play other games, and I'm curious what Zelda fans like about the Skyrim experience. Maybe there are some Zelda fans who are looking for something similar out of a Zelda game. I don't look at what's happening in the game, but how it made me feel, what in the game moved me, and how I can bring out those same emotions in players who play my games. My intent isn't to copy them, but those are the things that stay with you as a player. Upon this experience, Mr. Aonuma must have realized that the Zelda experience had become too linear, bound, and story-driven. Subsequently, he must have decided that in order to bring Zelda back to its golden days, he would have to challenge established conventions of the bound 3D Zelda games and hand back control to the player by seeking back to the franchise's roots of non-linear gameplay and see how he could enhance this premise. With these ideas as foundation, the development of a new and groundbreaking Zelda title for Nintendo's next console, the Wii U, was initiated. and with it, the greatest transition in the franchise's history since the move from the two-dimensional A Link to the Past to the three-dimensional Ocarina of Time had become a fact. Fast forward 6 months to June 2012 and Nintendo's last, to this point, E3 stage press conference, where among many things, Nintendo presented Nintendo Land for the Wii U, which included the Zelda minigame, Battle Quest. This demo would, for the first time, give us a taste of the motion controls and dual screen functions on the console, and heavily utilized both of the Wii U gamepad for archery and the Wii Motion Plus controller for sword combat. Things then went silent until series producer Eiji Aonuma announced during a Wii U dedicated Nintendo Direct in January 2013 that the next Zelda for Wii U would challenge two key established conventions: playing dungeons in a set order and playing by yourself. It was clear that Nintendo was preparing for a return to the series' cradle, The Legend of Zelda, and create a 3D world that is as immersive, mysterious, and boundless as the NES Classic was in 2D. He admitted that there was still a lot of work to do on the game, and as a replacement, announced the HD restoration of The Wind Waker. This brings us over to the consecutive line of remakes and spin-off games that have been released across the development cycle of what would later be called The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. The pilots Ocarina of Time 3D and Wind Waker HD would outline how the dual-screen capabilities of Nintendo's two systems and built-in gyroscope controls would be implemented in Breath of the Wild. But Wind Waker HD wasn't the only game that has been developed alongside Breath of the Wild, since half a year later during Nintendo's E3 Direct, the sequel/reimagining of A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds was revealed. This game took a step away from its predecessor and threw the linear dungeon progression found in Zelda games right out the window, by giving you the option to borrow close to the entire arsenal in the game from the first dungeon. This marked the first unlinear Zelda experience in decades, a premise that Breath of the Wild would build upon. After the massive Zelda blowout in 2013, Nintendo concluded the year in December by announcing Hyrule Warriors. Though not an official entry in the Zelda timeline, this spin-off was groundbreaking for bringing in a voiced narrator and different types of cutscenes. Then, at the E3 2014 digital event, Nintendo finally pulled up the curtain and revealed the new world of Zelda.
This is the new world of Zelda. It's quite a vast world, isn't it?
It became immediately clear that this title would blend the art styles of the impressionistic Skyward Sword and the cel-shaded Wind Waker, like the first Zelda, be set in a vast, living, and seamless open world, and build on the legacy of Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess by bringing back Hyrule and our favorite companion, Epona. It did as well hint the return of the time-shift technology found in Skyward Sword, by introducing the energy arrow and a massive energy-spewing monster. Nonetheless, unlike other 3D Zelda games, this massive mini-boss was not found in a dungeon, but rather in the open fields of what seemed to be a much bigger Hyrule. The short tease ended with the release year, 2015. Yeah, right. A short storm about Link's gender followed, and though Eiji Aonuma quickly dismissed the notion of Link being a girl, this did not change the fact that Link's characteristic green heroic tunic was missing and replaced by a blue tunic resembling the shirt worn by Link on Wind Waker's Outset Island. The level of hype generated was immense, and the close to flawless reveal of Zelda for Wii U secured Nintendo the best presentation of that year's E3. The Big N had done it again. But the year was still young, and after a solid reception for Hyrule Warriors in September, Nintendo dropped the bomb during the next Nintendo Direct that they had been working on a remake of Majora's Mask for the Nintendo 3DS since the release of Ocarina of Time 3D in 2011. The announcement of the remaster of this timeless classic made us realize two things. Zelda, as a franchise, is in a state of transformation, and the number of remakes and Hyrule Warriors served as an important part of this process. In other words, to find the right path for the next Zelda installment, Eiji Aonuma ordered the remakes of some of the most influential games in the series, not for the sake of remaking them, but to learn from them and take elements they could implement in the development process. A parallel that was confirmed during the 2014 Game Awards. The Game Awards 2014 marked the conclusion for an incredible year for Nintendo. However, it wasn't the award to Nintendo as Developer of the Year that stole the show, but the world premiere of the first ever gameplay of Zelda for Wii U. What surprised us all the most was that Eiji Aonuma and Shigeru Miyamoto were gracious, showing off the entirety of the massive and detailed world map of Hyrule, and explained how it would appear and function on the Wii U gamepad by zooming in and out of specific areas. Aonuma even went to length in a later interview to compare the world map on the gamepad to the experience he had when navigating through the map on his smartphone. It would turn out that the map was far from it, as a magic meter and sailcloth were confirmed, and we received demonstrations of horseback combat and travel, along with how the implementation of gyroscope, the slow-motion arrow time effect teased at E3, would function. The presentation was a blowout of information and caused a massive wave of speculation surrounding the game for months. Theories were brought up on sections of the map resembling provinces from the original Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and Twilight Princess, which were supported by key landmarks. Zora's River, Hyrule Castle, and the Great Bridge of Hylia got many to scratch their heads as to where in the chronology this game was placed. Could it be a reboot of some sort, or perhaps connected to Skyward Sword, Ocarina of Time, or Twilight Princess? Majora's Mask 3D was then released to critical acclaim in February 2015, improving on a number of the flaws found in the original Nintendo 64 version, such as the Bomber's Notebook and the save system. Nevertheless, the joy was short-lived, since the following month, series producer Eiji Aonuma posted on Facebook a development update video. In the last 3 months, as the team has experienced firsthand the freedom of exploring that hasn't existed in any Zelda games to date, we have discovered several new possibilities for this game. As we have worked to turn these possibilities into reality, new ideas have sprung forth, and we now have the potential to exceed even my own expectations. I feel strongly that our focus should be to bring all of these ideas to life in a way that will make Zelda on the Wii U the best game it can possibly be. So I must apologize, but we are no longer making a 2015 release our #1 priority. Instead, our priority is to make the most complete and ultimate Zelda game. Aonuma also gave a reason for Breath of the Wild's numerous delays, one of them obviously being to release alongside the NX, but the main justification being the game's complex physics engine. It's complicated because as we're developing this, obviously development of NX started a while ago, and unfortunately, I'm sorry, but the development of this game took a lot longer than expected. We really felt like we would be able to get it done last year, but there was a lot of struggle with using the physics engine, so that's why it took a long time. He also elaborated on that in a later interview with a more specific problem during development. It took a lot of time for a simple reason. When you have a single physics engine to manage all the rules that will apply to a world, if you change even a tiny value at one place, anything can happen on the other side of the map. For example, we had one dungeon designer who wanted to make a puzzle that made you move clay pots with wind, so he changed a slider value so that the wind could carry the pots. When I tested this build of the game, I went to another place where there were supposed to be pots and I couldn't find them. They had actually been carried by natural gusts and got stuck at the base of a distant mountain. We had a lot of anecdotes like this one during development, and from there, we made it a principle to have perfect communication between teams.
Satoru Iwata announced a strategy for mobile gaming, and that Nintendo was working on a new dedicated gaming platform, the codename NX. The news spread like fire. Could it really be true that Nintendo was turning their back to the underperforming Wii U and looking for a solution to pull its plug only 4 years after release? After an initial uproar among Wii U owners, Nintendo of America's Reggie Fils-Aimé addressed the matter during their E3 2015 digital event, stating that more information on the system would be shared in 2016.
Zelda for Wii U would not be present at E3 2015. Instead, Triforce Heroes, the first true online Zelda game, was revealed, and Reggie Fils-Aimé hinted that they had more footage of Zelda for Wii U to share later that year.
Chief executive of the Japanese video games company Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, has died. He was 55 and had been treated for cancer.
The tragic passing of Satoru Iwata in July and the appointment of Tatsumi Kimishima as his temporary successor further delayed any Nintendo announcements until November, when Twilight Princess HD was revealed. With it, we got another peek into the world of Zelda for Wii U and got to know that the Wolf Link amiibo would be compatible with the game. Interestingly enough, in this teaser, Link had a different tunic depicting the Master Sword, a giant sword, and a different shield and bow. Furthermore, the Sheikah connection was confirmed with Link having a glowing tablet or book with the Sheikah tearing eye at its cover. The 13-second long teaser ended with the confirmation that the game was scheduled for 2016. Unfortunately, this release year was not meant to last for long, since after Nintendo completely ignored Zelda's 30th anniversary in February, Twilight Princess HD was released in March to critical acclaim. Similarly to Wind Waker HD, this remaster included a number of gameplay improvements and a successful implementation of the Wii U gamepad with solid gyroscope controls in addition to convenient map and inventory functions through the second screen. Interestingly enough, in the development mini-series building up to the release of Twilight Princess HD, and later an interview from the Japanese game magazine Famitsu, series producer Mr. Eiji Aonuma shared some information about Twilight Princess HD and its alleged connection to the next Legend of Zelda. I am busy with the final stages of development and currently working on implementing the in-game text. The game has really taken shape and things have gotten easier. That means things are progressing well. I think the base of our secret sauce has always been Ocarina of Time, but this time the change in flavor will be like going from Japanese food to Western style food. Perhaps players will be surprised. Please look forward to it because I think we'll be able to make something new like Ocarina of Time was. While making the latest title for The Legend of Zelda, when I look at this remake, I feel like this is the origin point of the new title we're making right now. After playing this game, you may have some "oh, I see" moments when playing the new game. I'll be glad if you played Twilight Princess HD while waiting in anticipation for the latest title of The Legend of Zelda. It's not the save data itself, but part of the data saved in the Wolf Link amiibo can be brought over and used in the new title too. For some people, when they play the new title, they might feel the urge to play Twilight Princess HD one more time. However, the joy was once again short-lived as Nintendo's quarterly financial briefing in April was a mix of good, bad, and ugly. The good news was that we finally received an official concept art of Link, a confirmation that Nintendo's next system, the codename NX, comes out in March 2017, and that Zelda would be on the system. The bad was that Zelda was, for a second time, delayed to 2017, and the ugly was that this delay was by all records caused by the fact that the next Zelda would be simultaneously released both on the Wii U and NX in time for the official launch.
Though originally scheduled for 2016, the release of the latest The Legend of Zelda title is postponed until 2017 to allow further improvement of quality. In return, it appears that Nintendo is going all Bethesda this E3 with Zelda Wii U. Quote, "This June, Nintendo will focus its attentions on the upcoming game in the Legend of Zelda series. The Wii U version of the game will be playable for the first time on the E3 show floor, and it will be the only playable game Nintendo presents at the show in order to provide attendees a complete immersion."
In return, Nintendo announced some of their plans for E3.
Quote, "This June, Nintendo will focus its attentions on the upcoming game in the Legend of Zelda series. The Wii U version of the game will be playable for the first time on the E3 show floor, and it will be the only playable game Nintendo presents at the show in order to provide attendees a complete immersion."
E3 2016 was nothing but an unreal adventure. The expectations set for Nintendo were sky high, and Nintendo did not disappoint. Not by a long shot. After a short introduction and moment of remembrance by COO Reggie Fils-Aimé, we finally got the awaited first proper trailer, treehouse playthrough, and the reveal of the official title, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. In the first act of the Treehouse playthrough, series producer and now former director Mr. Eiji Aonuma was asked about the inspiration behind the name and said that it was unlike previous Zelda games influenced by the big game changer in this installment, namely the massive open world of Hyrule. If there was any doubt, then it was quickly and immediately shattered as the show floor demo was the entire opening province, the plateau, making up less than 2% of the final game. The experience was divided in two. The first half was a timed free roam demonstration of a number of the new mechanics present in the game, such as the new type of mini-dungeons, the Sheikah Shrines, and the runes acquired in these, surprise mini-boss encounters in the overworld, including the fearsome mechanical guardians, climbing, woodcutting, the inclusion of a jump button, a revamped approach to the extensive arsenal of items and breakable weaponry at your disposal, the return of the stamina meter, hunting, cooking, our personal favorite, shield surfing, and much, much more. The second demo, on the other hand, was purely story-driven and gave a taste of the plot in Breath of the Wild, and the confirmation of the limited inclusion of voice acting in the game, which would eventually turn out to be not as limited as we had assumed, but more on that later. After a 100-year-long stasis, Link wakes up in the Sheikah Resurrection Shrine, and after the quickest tutorial since the NES era, the game sends you out with its key item, the Sheikah Slate, to explore the introductory area, the plateau, where you, upon meeting the old man and activating the first resurrection tower, realize that this world is on the brink of apocalypse due to the sealed calamity Ganon in Hyrule Castle. But the best thing about the demo was the confirmation that the Wolf Link amiibo from Twilight Princess HD will serve a key function, bringing Wolf Link from the Cave of Shadows as your companion in Breath of the Wild. If that was not enough, Nintendo would bring us 3 new amiibo for the release of Breath of the Wild for Wii U and NX. Link in his attack position, Link on Epona, and one of the mysterious Guardians. Physics this time around play a huge part in how puzzles and combat operate in Breath of the Wild, because most, if not all, of the Sheikah Slate's powers revolve around the Unreal Physics engine. Considering this is a first for the series, it is understandable that the game took significantly longer than Nintendo had anticipated. Up to E3's conclusion, Breath of the Wild was undoubtedly the biggest showing at the event. It garnered a number of Game of the Show awards from various media outlets, was the #1 searched game on the web, and the most talked about amongst social media, simply because it dared to be different from its predecessors. The Legend of Zelda had made the jump from a bound linear adventure to a seamless open-air experience with some action RPG elements.
Over the next few months, new information regarding Breath of the Wild was unsurprisingly meager, consisting mainly of new gameplay in the areas of the Great Plateau we've already seen. These series of short videos showed off the Koroks, Shrine Oman Ao, weapons, some impressive paraglider gameplay, and of course, cooking. However, Breath of the Wild wasn't the thing on everyone's mind that was Nintendo related. Towards the autumn season, fans and gamers alike were eagerly awaiting the reveal of the NX, and on October 20th, their prayers were finally answered. The NX was revealed to be the Nintendo Switch, a home console that doubled as a handheld you can take with you to the park, on a plane, in your Uber, all the way back to your expensive condo, if you own one. The trailer consisted of a few Switch games, and the first one was Breath of the Wild. The simulated footage showed off gameplay of the Great Plateau, including Link taking on the bokoblins on horseback and an intriguing boss, which is assumed to be one of the many Cyclops battles in this game. Only a few seconds of footage were presented during the trailer, but thankfully the Game Awards 2016 would deliver it with another trailer, and a Let's Play with Nintendo of America's Bill Trennan and Nate Bildorf. Their playthrough of the Wii U version revealed a new character, a Rito named Cass, a new jungle area, and a returning enemy. It was also revealed that this game would be much more difficult than any other Zelda game since the adventure of Link on the NES. One hit could take as much as 80% of Link's health. At this point, 2 years have passed since Breath of the Wild's gameplay premiere at the Game Awards 2014, and a few things have changed since then. For starters, the game had unique features teased by the demo, and the remakes of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are totally gone. Even during E3, the screen only functioned as a control guide, The only thing that remains is the gyroscope controls used for aiming the bow and Sheikah Slate. Also gone are the magic meter and the sailcloth being replaced by the paraglider. Being released on both the Wii U and the Switch drastically changed the development process for Breath of the Wild, having developers focus less on the Wii U specific features in favor for the superior Switch version that'll be marketed towards the masses. But the Switch version was a no-show at the Game Awards. The Game Awards also presented the Life in Ruins trailer, revealing what life is like in a post-apocalyptic Hyrule, and hinting at what happened 100 years prior to Link waking up in the Shrine of Resurrection. Town, villages, and seasons were the main focus of this trailer, showing that even though the Kingdom of Hyrule has collapsed, the populace is still doing their best to defend their land. Since then, the Legend of Zelda Facebook page added new screenshots of the game and some concept art, revealing seasons, a new type of guardian assumed to be a mini-boss, and a building that would later be revealed as a stable. It wasn't until an episode of Late Night with Jimmy Fallon in December that the world got its first live play session of the Nintendo Switch and Breath of the Wild. Even if it was off-screen footage, it was clear that the Switch version was a superior version in terms of performance. That, and playing it on the handheld, was a much smoother experience than anyone had anticipated. Nonetheless, this was just a tease compared to what would come a month later at Tokyo Big Sight.
On January 12th, Nintendo held their Switch presentation to discuss the details of their upcoming console, including price, release date, and launch window titles. Towards the end, a video presentation with Reggie Fils-Aimé along with Shigeru Miyamoto and Eiji Aonuma teased everyone, with Reggie asking them when Breath of the Wild will finally come out on store shelves. They answered in the best possible way, with a trailer showing Switch gameplay, story elements with voice acting, music that tugs at the heartstrings of every Zelda fan, and best of all, a release date of March 3rd, 2017, the same day the Switch launches worldwide. As if that wasn't enough, the internet was treated with some direct feed footage of Breath of the Wild on the Nintendo Switch from the Nintendo Treehouse, YouTubers, and media outlets, confirming that it runs better on the new system than on Wii U, at least the demo version played at E3, but still with some, albeit less, frame rate problems. The game also runs at a higher resolution of 900p in TV mode and 720p on handheld, thus making it run better on the latter option. Nintendo also showed off what it's like to finally descend from the Great Plateau using the paraglider. From there, they demonstrated what it's like to get a horse and register it at a stable. Players will be able to collect more than one horse with different stats. The better the stats, the harder it is to catch. However, Link's trusty mare Epona will be somewhere in the game, Aonuma confirmed, but he wouldn't share any details on how to find her. On the day of the Treehouse, 2 collector's editions were announced for the US, the Special Edition and Master Edition. Both versions come with the game, a Sheikah Eye collectible coin, a weather-worn map of Hyrule, a soundtrack CD, and a Sheikah Slate carrying case for the Switch. The Master Edition, however, gets the additional Master Sword of Resurrection statue. The only problem with this version was that it was only available online in extremely limited quantities. Thankfully, the Special Edition was not nearly as uncommon. Unfortunately, Europe has not had a similar blessing, as the Master Edition there only comes with a soundtrack CD and the Master Sword of Resurrection statue. With just about every detail necessary announced for Breath of the Wild and the Switch, it was now up to Nintendo to advertise it correctly, something they didn't do well with the Wii U. How best to do that? Spending $5 million on a Super Bowl ad certainly helps, and that is not sarcasm. Super Bowl 51 brought in 111.3 million viewers on national television, and the vast majority of them who didn't go to use the bathroom saw this 30-second TV spot, which got the message across perfectly. You can take the Switch anywhere with you or back to the TV. There is a longer version of this commercial online, but the less time Nintendo spends explaining what the console is, the better. And the one game being played in those 30 seconds was, of course, Breath of the Wild, sure to be the biggest system seller come release. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild launches this week, more specifically tomorrow, on the Nintendo Switch and Wii U. But the news does not stop coming. Yesterday at the Game Developers Conference, or GDC, a panel was held by arguably the most important members of Breath of the Wild's development, Technical Director Takuhiro Doda, Art Director Satoru Takizawa, and the game's director Hidemaru Fujibayashi. Together, they told stories about the development of the game, which started by figuring out how to break the conventions of Zelda and turn it from a passive game into an active one. This started with having the player interact with objects, so to present this idea to the team, the trio created a 2D prototype of Breath of the Wild using 8-bit graphics. Literally everything in this prototype was interactive, being able to burn down trees, blow gusts of wind, etc. The thing about this 2D prototype was that it was actually 3D and running on the same physics and so-called chemistry engine Breath of the Wild uses. Creating the highest degree of freedom was important in making a versatile Zelda experience, like the ability to push this rock all the way to the final boss. What's even more interesting is the concepts they came up with before sticking to Breath of the Wild, such as Hyrule Wars and even an alien invasion scenario. Even more humorous are the ideas for Biker Link, Tracksuit Link, and Musician Link. One of these days, maybe. But before we get to the final section, we would like to announce the winners of our Nintendo Switch giveaway. Third prize winner for the copy of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Nintendo Switch is Josh Larson. Second prize winner for the 11-inch First Four Figures figurine of Archer Link is Joseph Harvier. And now, the grand prize winner for the Nintendo Switch is Jesse Stratt. Congratulations to all three of our winners. You'll be receiving an email shortly from us. And for those of you who entered but unfortunately did not win, don't worry. We will have giveaways in the future. Maybe not the near future, but sometime in the future. Trust us. Probably. The wait was worth it. All the delays, struggles, disappointments, and remakes have resulted in a Zelda game like no other. A magnum opus for Eiji Aonuma and his team, and what by all records will go down as the best game of all time. The adventure of your life. And remember, it is dangerous to go alone, so take this. Thank you so much for watching.